supermarkets prep and sell meals, and it's exactly why one got in trouble with health inspectors.
A recent investigation by a coalition of public health and food safety groups uncovered something about grocery store meat that honestly shocked me, and it's going to change how you look at that family pack of ground beef you were planning to buy this weekend. See, while you're comparing prices and checking sell-by dates, there's a whole other story playing out behind those meat department doors that the stores really don't want you to know about. What kills me is that these aren't some sketchy corner stores we're talking about here. These are the massive chains where millions of Americans buy their meat every single week, trusting that someone, somewhere, is making sure that ribeye or package of chicken thighs is actually safe to feed their kids. But after diving deep into inspection reports, recall data, and that bombshell superbugs in stock report from 2022, I can tell you that trust is seriously misplaced when it comes to these 5 grocery giants. So let's start with number 5, Albertsons, and I'm including all their stores here because whether you shop at Safeway, Vons, Jewel Osco, Shaw's, or Acme, you're dealing with the exact same corporate policies, or should I say lack of policies. Now look, Albertsons will tell you they care about animal welfare and they've got this whole antibiotic stewardship framework thing going on, which sounds impressive until you realize it's basically corporate speak for doing the absolute minimum required by law. The investigators who put together that Superbugs report weren't buying it either, which is why Albertsons got slapped with a big fat F grade. Here's what that actually means for your Sunday pot roast. They've got no real commitment to stopping routine antibiotic use in their meat supply, no timeline for making any improvements. And get this, they don't even audit their suppliers to check if they're following whatever loose guidelines supposedly exist. It's basically the honor system, except we're talking about your food safety here. You know what really gets me? Testing shows that about 2/3 of all medically important antibiotics in America aren't being used to treat sick animals. Nope. Farmers are pumping healthy animals full of these drugs just to prevent diseases that only happen because they're crammed into industrial farming operations. And every time they do that, they're basically training bacteria to become resistant to the exact same antibiotics your doctor might need to prescribe when you get sick. The numbers are staggering when you really dig into them. We're talking about 35 million pounds of antibiotics used in food-producing animals every single year, compared to just 8 million pounds used in human medicine. That means the meat industry is using 4 times more antibiotics than all the hospitals and doctors' offices in America combined, and most of it isn't even for treating sick animals. It's prophylactic use, which is just a fancy way of saying they're dosing healthy animals to prevent problems caused by overcrowding and poor conditions. Think about the last time you bought ground beef at Safeway, and it's practically playing Russian roulette with your digestive system, except at least with Russian roulette you know the odds. With Albertsons meat, you've got no idea whether that package came from a supplier who's doing things right or one who's treating their cattle like walking petri dishes for developing superbugs. And when things go wrong, boy, do they go wrong. Like that 2022 interstate meat recall that hit 28,356 pounds of ground beef across multiple Albertsons stores. Former meat department employees from Albertsons have told me stories that would make your stomach turn. Meat sitting in shopping carts in the back room for hours because they're short-staffed. Managers pushing them to put out product that's right on the edge of its sell-by date, and absolutely zero training on why any of this matters beyond avoiding obvious spoilage. One guy who worked at a Vons in California for 3 years said he never once saw anyone check temperatures on incoming shipments. They just threw everything in the cooler and hoped for the best. But wait, it gets better. And by better, I mean worse. Number 4 on our list is going to hurt some feelings, because I know Trader Joe's has this cult following of people who swear by their everything but the bagel seasoning and those addictive dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Trust me, I get it. The Hawaiian shirts, the bells ringing at the registers, that whole vibe makes you feel like you're shopping somewhere special, somewhere that cares. Well, they care so much that when investigators asked them about their meat policies, Trader Joe's basically ghosted them like a bad Tinder date. No survey response, no meaningful public information, just a vague FAQ that essentially says, yeah, We sell some meat with antibiotics and some without. Good luck figuring out which is which. Another F grade, another massive chain that can't be bothered to protect its customers from antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The Trader Joe's situation is particularly frustrating because they've built their entire brand on being different, being better, caring more about quality than the big corporate chains. They'll go on and on about their careful curation of products, their relationships with suppliers, how they taste test everything. But when it comes to the basic safety issue of antibiotic use in their meat, suddenly they've got nothing to say. It's corporate hypocrisy at its finest, wrapped up in a Hawaiian shirt and sold with a smile. And here's where Trader Joe's really drops the ball compared to their carefully crafted image. Remember that massive Bruce Pack recall from fall 2024? 12 million pounds of ready-to-eat meat and poultry potentially contaminated with listeria. And guess whose name showed up on that distribution list? Your friendly neighborhood Trader Joe's, right there with all the other industrial food giants they pretend they're so different from. What most people don't realize is that listeria is particularly nasty because it can grow at refrigerator temperatures, meaning that ready-to-eat meat from Trader Joe's could be getting more dangerous every day it sits in your fridge. For pregnant women, listeria can cause miscarriages and stillbirths. For elderly people or anyone with a weakened immune system, it can be fatal. But sure, keep telling us about your amazing $2 chuck while you're selling potentially contaminated lunch meat to vulnerable populations. The whole Trader Joe's meat situation reminds me of those Instagram influencers who post about their amazing organic lifestyle while eating McDonald's off camera. All show, no substance, and you're the one who pays the price when you bring home their store-brand turkey slices, thinking you're getting something special, only to find out it's from the same industrial suppliers as everyone else, just with a quirky product name slapped on it. Number 3 is Aldi. And before all you Aldi superfans come for me in the comments, hear me out because those low prices you love so much, they come with hidden costs that might make you think twice about loading up your quarter rental cart with their meat products. Aldi's antibiotic policy is so bare bones it makes a skeleton look overdressed. They mumble something about following FDA guidelines, which is literally just saying they obey the law, kind of like bragging that you stop at red lights. The thing about Aldi that really burns me up is they actually have this never-any brand that's raised without antibiotics, proving they know how to source better meat when they want to. But instead of making that the standard, they treat it as some premium option while filling the rest of their cases with the same industrial meat as everyone else. It's like they're admitting they know there's a problem, but figure most of their customers either don't know or don't care enough to pay extra for safer meat. Aldi's business model of limited selection and rotating stock actually makes their meat situation worse, not better. When you've only got a handful of suppliers, and one of them has a problem, it affects a huge percentage of your inventory. Plus, their rapid turnover means meat is constantly being moved in and out, handled by employees who are expected to stock everything from frozen pizzas to lawn chairs, not specialists who understand the importance of maintaining the cold chain. Remember that 2018 Cargill E. coli recall? Aldi was right there on the distribution list because, surprise, surprise, they buy from the same massive processors as everyone else. Their limited supplier network actually makes things worse because when one supplier screws up, it affects a huge chunk of their inventory. Shopping for meat at ALD. Thinking you're getting a deal is like buying a discount parachute. Sure, you saved some money, but do you really want to find out if it works when you need it most? The ALDI meat department is also notorious among food safety inspectors for temperature control issues. Those open-top freezer bunkers they use for special buys? They're terrible at maintaining consistent temperatures, especially when customers are digging through them all day. I've personally measured temperature variations of over 15 degrees in different parts of the same freezer case at Aldi, and that's exactly the kind of temperature abuse that lets bacteria multiply to dangerous levels. Now we're getting to the real heavy hitters, and number 2 might surprise some people because Kroger owns so many different chains that you might not even realize you're shopping there. Fred Meyer, King Soopers, Ralph's, QFC, Harris Teeter, Pick and Save, Metro Market, Mariano's. The list goes on, and every single one of them is operating under the same failed policies that earned Kroger another F grade from the investigators. Kroger loves to parade around their simple truth line like it's some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card for their terrible practices. But here's the thing. Nobody seems to talk about. Simple truth is just a tiny fraction of the meat they sell. The vast majority of their meat cases are filled with conventional products from suppliers who can pump their animals full of antibiotics whenever they feel like it, as long as they follow the incredibly loose federal guidelines that are basically designed to protect the meat industry, not consumers. What really pisses me off about Kroger is they have the market power to change everything overnight if they wanted to. They're one of the largest grocery chains in America, and if they told their suppliers tomorrow that all meat had to be raised without routine antibiotics, those suppliers would scramble to make it happen because they can't afford to lose Kroger's business. Instead, Kroger made a calculated decision that it's more profitable to offer a premium antibiotic-free option for health-conscious consumers with money while selling antibiotic-laden meat to everyone else. The way Kroger handles their in-store meat grinding is particularly concerning. Unlike some chains that get their ground beef pre-packaged from certified facilities, many Kroger stores grind meat on site, combining trim from various sources without proper tracking. When there's a recall or an outbreak investigation, this makes it nearly impossible to trace the contamination source. The USDA had to implement special rules in 2015 requiring better grinding logs specifically because chains like Kroger were making it so hard to track food safety issues. The January 2022 interstate meat recall really shows how this plays out in real life, with over 28,000 pounds of potentially contaminated ground beef distributed to Kroger stores across multiple states. And that's just the one that made headlines. Industry insiders tell me there are constant smaller issues that never make the news, because the chains and suppliers have gotten really good at quietly pulling products before anyone notices. Makes you wonder what else is happening that we don't know about, doesn't it? Kroger's size also means they're constantly dealing with multiple recalls simultaneously. While they were handling that interstate meat situation, they also had recalls for listeria in deli meats, salmonella in bagged salads, and undeclared allergens in several prepared foods. Their recall notification system is a joke too, relying on tiny signs posted at customer service desks that nobody reads and automated phone calls that most people ignore as spam. And finally, the absolute worst offender, the number one store you should avoid buying meat from is Walmart. And honestly, the fact that America's largest retailer is also the worst at meat safety tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. Walmart's meat policy is such a joke that calling it a policy is generous. It's more like a suggestion box that nobody ever opens. They ask their suppliers to be responsible with antibiotics. They request reports on usage. They encourage best practices. Notice how none of those words mean require or enforce or verify. That's not an accident. That's Walmart choosing profits over people every single day. With their massive market share and influence, Walmart could single-handedly transform the American meat industry. But instead, they got the same F grade as everyone else on this list because they simply don't give a damn. The May 2024 Cargill recall really drives this home, with over 16,000 pounds of ground beef potentially contaminated with E. coli shipped to Walmart stores across multiple states, affecting thousands of families who thought they were just buying dinner, not playing bacterial roulette. And that's just the official recalls. Former employees from 17 different Walmart locations have told me about meat sitting in back rooms for hours, packages being redated when they approach expiration, and yesterday's steaks becoming today's ground beef without any proper documentation. Walmart's meat supply chain is so complex and opaque that even their own employees don't understand it. Meat arrives from dozens of different suppliers, gets redistributed through regional centers, and finally ends up in stores where undertrained, underpaid workers are expected to maintain food safety standards while also hitting aggressive sales targets. It's a system designed to fail, and when it does, you're the one who suffers. The scale of Walmart's failure is hard to wrap your head around because we're talking about the place where 1 in 3 Americans buy their groceries. Every single day, millions of people walk into Walmart thinking they're getting a deal on that family pack of chicken breasts or ground beef, not realizing they're potentially bringing home meat loaded with antibiotic-resistant bacteria that could make their kids sick with infections that don't respond to normal treatment. Here's a fun fact that Walmart doesn't advertise. They're one of the biggest sellers of mechanically tenderized beef in America, but most of their customers have no idea what that even means. Those blade-tenderized steaks might look nice and tender, but those blades are pushing surface bacteria deep into the meat where it can survive cooking unless you treat it like ground beef and cook it all the way through. How many people are getting sick from eating medium-rare mechanically tenderized steaks from Walmart? We'll never know because nobody's tracking it properly. What makes me absolutely furious is that Walmart knows exactly what they're doing. They have armies of lawyers and food safety experts who understand the risks perfectly well, but they've calculated that it's cheaper to keep doing things the wrong way and occasionally pay out settlements than it is to actually fix their supply chain. They're literally gambling with your family's health because they've decided the odds are in their favor financially. The truth is, you do have better options out there if you know where to look. Target actually got a C grade, which isn't amazing, but it's leagues better than an F, because they've made real time-bound commitments to reduce antibiotic use across different species of animals. The Ahold Delhaize chains like Stop & Shop, Giant, and Food Lion are doing better too. And even Costco, despite only getting a D overall, has some solid commitments specifically for their chicken products. Whole Foods Market, despite being owned by Amazon now, still maintains a policy that all their fresh meat and poultry must be raised without antibiotics. Now they charge an arm and a leg for it, but at least you know what you're getting. Some regional chains like Wegmans and Publix have also implemented stronger antibiotic policies than the national giants, though you'll need to check what's available in your area. But let's be real here. Even the best mainstream grocery stores are still part of an industrial food system that prioritizes efficiency and profit over safety and quality. That's why your best bet is often to find a local butcher who can tell you exactly where their meat comes from, or hit up farmers markets where you can literally talk to the person who raised the animal you're about to eat. Yeah, it might cost more and take more effort, but compared to feeding your family meat that's contributing to the antibiotic resistance crisis, that's a trade-off worth making. When you do have to shop at these stores, and I get it, sometimes Walmart is your only option, you need to become a label detective. USDA organic certification means no antibiotics ever, period, with actual federal oversight to back it up. Look for third-party certifications like Animal Welfare Approved, Certified Humane, or Global Animal Partnership, which have real standards and actually audit their producers. Skip anything with vague marketing terms like naturally raised or farm fresh because those don't mean a damn thing legally. And for the love of all that is holy, be extra careful with ground meat because that's where things get really dicey. When you grind meat, you're mixing product from multiple animals and creating way more surface area for bacteria to grow, which is why ground beef has higher contamination rates than any other meat product. Always cook it to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and I mean always, not medium rare, not pink in the middle, fully cooked every single time. Here's something most people don't know. Mechanically tenderized beef, which is way more common than you'd think, is just as risky as ground beef because those tenderizing needles push surface bacteria deep into the meat. Since 2016, stores have been required to label this stuff, but most shoppers have no idea what that label means or why it matters. If you see mechanically tenderized on the label, treat it like ground beef and cook it thoroughly. The bottom line is this. These 5 stores control a massive chunk of the American meat supply, and they've all chosen to prioritize their profits over your family's safety. Every package of conventional meat from Walmart, Kroger, ALDI, Trader Joe's, or Albertsons potentially contributes to the growing crisis of antibiotic resistance that kills thousands of Americans every year. They won't change unless we force them to. And that starts with taking our business elsewhere whenever possible and demanding better when it's not. So next time you're standing in front of that meat case, remember what you learned here and make the choice that protects your family, because these stores sure as hell aren't going to do it for you. The system is broken, but armed with the right knowledge, you can navigate it safely, and maybe, just maybe, if enough of us vote with our wallets, we can force these corporate giants to finally do the right thing.